Let's talk about taking the plunge. So taking the plunge could mean a lot of things. It could mean starting that business. It could mean, changing jobs. I have a lot of people that tell me that they're unhappy with the job, or they don't really like the company they're working for. They don't like what they're doing, right? Some people, they want to, in a project management role, and they have this project, but they're just not ready to kind of release it. They're like, no, I just got to make this change. I got to make that change. Or this is not perfect. That's not perfect. So often I get asked about taking the plunge. I don't know if you guys do as well. What are your tips? What do you do when people come to you and tell you about a situation where they want to, but they just haven't?
I'm guilty of like holding back on leaping in fully or launching something, but I think I'm aware of why. Like I know I have perfectionist tendencies, which is just the worst. And also I can get stuck in analysis paralysis. So I like learning. So that can be a tricky combo. Because the more I learn about the options and routes that I can take, the more decisions I have to make up front. And sometimes I have to just tell myself to just like, don't Google anything. Just like go with your gut right now. You can figure out what comes up next. If you've made a terrible decision afterwards, then like you can still stop. It's not the rest of your life that you have to stick with this like project that you're jumping into. Or even career that you're jumping into. Like you don't have to be there for 40 years. That's not an expectation anymore.
I think it's one of the keys, Alex. When someone thinks that as soon as I do this, I take this plunge, or I change my job, or I select a degree, a degree that I want to pursue in university, or if I choose this profession, that's it. Like I'm stuck with it forever. Mm-hmm. You're right. I think once they realize this is just temporary, if it works, it could be my calling in life. If it doesn't work, all good. I wasted a month or two, or $5,000. So I think when you look at it like that, where it's just a temporary thing with the hope it could be something long term, I think then you do take the plunge more often. Unless you're talking about marriage, maybe it could be a little bit different taking the plunge, because that's another thing people talk about. What do you guys think?
I think it depends. Like for me personally, when it comes to changing careers or finding, changing jobs, that part I'm okay with. If I go back over my resume, I've switched companies and switched roles. And in order for me to, make more money or move my career up a level, I usually end up having to leave the organization that I'm with, because when you stay in one place, like they could hire somebody to come in and do your job, and they're going to be making more than you because they're coming off the street. So it's fine when it comes, for me, changing careers. If it comes to starting a business, that's where I'm a little bit hesitant. But I would encourage people, especially if you're young, you're still don't have a lot of maybe financial responsibilities, you are able to invest and take a gamble on yourself. I would definitely encourage you to do that, because I think if I could go back and tell my young self, 20 years ago, maybe look to starting your own business or being an entrepreneur, I would have done it then. I'm not saying I can't do it now, but given how my life is, how demanding my current career is, having children, responsibilities, it's really hard to carve out that time to take that plunge if you're going to start a business, because it's going to take time, and you're going to get from a business what you put into it. So I think it's just where you are in your life. If you're young and thinking of going the entrepreneur route, I would definitely encourage. Don't think it's going to be perfect. Just put it out there and see what happens.
So I'm gonna don't take offense.
Yeah.
Because often that's the kind of the way I get someone coming to me and say, I want to do it, but these are the reasons why I'm not doing it, right? Which is something I like to help people with in terms of overcoming. And it's the reasons you mentioned are so common, right? Mm-hmm. I have kids. I got, I wish I was 10 years younger, 20 years younger. I would have definitely done it, but this is not the right time, which is, very common scenario. The person that started Kijiji, I think he started when he was like in his 50s or something, or late 40s, which is rare. Like most entrepreneurs are basically right out of high school, dropped out of high school, or dropped out of university. Most of them, right? The most successful ones, but some of them, weren't like that. Jeff Bezos was, I think, in his late 20s, early 30s. Again, young, right? but Craigslist founder, a few other founders were in their 40s or 50s. So I think if you treat it like, hey, you know what, I have all these things that are going against me, then you're probably not going to do it, and it's going to be difficult. But if you have the attitude of like, well, it's been done, and you know, Jeff Bezos or you know, the person that started Craigslist, and we think Craigslist is worth like a couple of $1 billion. So I think that's the first thing, because you're naturally going to make excuses for yourself, and not to say that's an excuse, but it could be reasons why you're not doing it, right? So I think when you believe that, I would put it. I'll take one step back. I would say if it's something you really, really like doing, you know, and this is something that you get passionate about, I think you should just take the plunge, right? Forget what happens. Of course, we're responsible enough. We're going to care about our kids. We're going to care about our mortgages. We're going to, you know, we're not just going to like take, you know, get rid of everything just to pursue the business or taking the change in the career. But I think if you have the mindset of like, I really enjoy this, or this is something that I do and it doesn't even feel like work for me, I think this is easier to take that plunge, right? And again, you're right. You only get back what you put into it. 100% you're right on that. But I think also if you think about from the point of view of, I have confidence in myself. I know that I can juggle both for a period of time. And if, you know, what I'm going to do, the business I want to start is going to start doing better, well, eventually you're going to say, you know what, I'm going to choose the business over my job, right? But if you have that attitude, I think that does come in handy.
But something's going to suffer. Something, and I guess you have to be okay with that.
Yeah.
Because you can't be good at all things at the same time. So if and for me as well, truthfully, I've never had anything that I'm that passionate about where I say I'm gonna invest my time and figure out a way that I can make money at this, because and this is what I tell my kids: if you do something for if you have something that you're passionate about and you find a way to monetize it, it'll feel like you've never worked a day in your life, because every day you're waking up excited to do something you love. And I've not found what that thing is for me, but that is what I'm encouraging my children to do. Find out what you love and then see somebody will pay you to do that. But I think you have to be okay with knowing that, yes, if you have a job and family and all that things, something is going to suffer. One of those things will suffer.
No, 100%. Yeah, you can't be perfect at everything. You have some passions, Alex, in like art.
So many.
Well, quite a few, right? Are you pursuing any of them?
All of them.
All of them, right?
Yeah. So I think that taking the plunge does not immediately translate to taking all of the time that you have and doing this one thing. Taking the plunge could be like carving out 5 hours a week to do this thing that you're really passionate about, and then you figured out how to monetize it. I could not paint for 40 hours a week. Like I can't control when I'm feeling creative. So I guess I've just contradicted what I've said. You can't take 5 hours a week and like dedicate it to painting. You have to be prepared so that when you are feeling that urge to, and this paint, everything is already there. So you can just, it's set up, you're good to go. You run into that corner, you need to paint, you just keep going, you zone in, and then you go back to your day job. And like maybe you look at it as your day job is not your end all be all. You can have multiple streams of revenue, and you can be happy with them all. And you don't have to be the top 1% performer at your company. You can show up and put your head down and do your job and be happy and not constantly be striving to climb that corporate ladder. Or you can, and you just have this creative outlet outside of it that fuels your success at your work. Or whatever the passion project is that you're jumping into, it also is not going to take up your whole life. Like in terms of, well, it might, but I'm not going to say I'm going to paint 5 hours a week for 15 years. Like that is so unrealistic for me to do. I'm going to say I'm going to paint for as long as I feel like I want to paint. And if it makes me money this month or this year, then I'll paint more if I'm feeling inspired. And I'm trying to think of something that's not so artsy, because I also freelance.
I've seen that work where they're not quite ready to give up their day job. Yeah. You know, one of the managers you worked for, his passion was like like plays, being a playwright. So
Right.
in theater, and actually he had a couple of his plays that he written, like performed in like a bunch of cities across America, right? Different ones, right? So that was what his passion is. He does his day job, it pays his bills, but that's what he likes to do on the side. So it doesn't mean you have to like go all in. Now, again, we talked in a previous podcast, going all in has its benefits. But I think you can identify, well, hey, this is the time to go on it. There's an opportunity here. I'm good at it, or I can monetize on it. Then you can do it. But yeah, it's a good recipe. Is also have your passion, find out what it is, or you should know what it is when you find it. And maybe, as you mentioned, spend 5 hours a day, or 5 hours a week rather, or a month or whatever. Right. And until it starts to become something that you want to do and pursue more. Another key is, yes, you might not say, well, you know what, Friday evenings is my day to be creative. You might not have that juice at that given time. But what I always like to do is, just like this podcast, I'm thinking about it throughout the week, right? And I know that I have to come up and give you guys the topics on the Friday or the Saturday, not really Sundays. Little doesn't enough time to prepare, but just throughout the week, I'm like, hey, that's a good topic, or that's a good topic, or just to, while you're not actually in front of your canvas to draw, you could be like, well, this color theme, this color palette would look nice, or what if I did it this way or that way? So you can do that mental work anytime throughout the day, while you're driving, while you're doing something else, and then that time you allocate to doing the work, you go ahead and do it.
Well, and activities like that help you. And this is, once again, it's just for creative projects, whether it's for monetary gain or not, or if it's just a creative outlet. That pre-thought helps you in the moment where all of a sudden your flow clicks in, and you don't have to make those decisions. You are just zoning in, doing one thing that you're really good at. If you're a writer, you don't have to make all of those decisions because you've already come up with those bullet points that you've set aside in the back of your mind a couple days prior. Yeah. So you're not decision making, which is so exhausting on your brain. It's so time consuming and requires so much of your energy. You are just in your flow. You're doing what you're good at doing. Now I'm a writer in this scenario, or painting. And it's more like you're tapping into your cerebral, your in and out of body experience. Like that's what it feels like when I'm in my flow state. But I've prepped for that. I'm not just like, oh, today I feel like I'm in my flow state and I don't have paintbrushes around. I don't have paint. So should I gotta go grab mud from the backyard and throw it on a piece of paper? No, there's so much planning that goes into painting. Right. But
I think for most things that you want to monetize or whatever, there is planning involved. Yeah. And I think if you have the mindset of I think if you can capitalize as you're hinting, which is not when you're in the zone to do it, but throughout the day, throughout the week, just plan, brainstorm. I do that often in my day job where, I want to spend time. I clock out. I don't usually work overtime physically in person, but when I know that I have this report I have to do on a Friday or a Saturday, whatever that time is, I'm doing the bullet points in my head, right? So I'm doing everything while life is happening. I'm trying to enjoy life while I'm trying to get ahead. And then, Monday morning, Sunday, whenever I have to put pen to paper or put, fingertip to keyboard, I already have this whole thing figured out, right? I'm just there for 20 minutes, 30 minutes and just put it together rather than doing that thinking while I'm in front of the computer or in front of the canvas. Yeah. So.